You've never seen anything like this before. Ukrainian robots with machine guns are attacking Russian positions. Trump's historic decision. The US is giving Ukraine missiles to strike Moscow. And Kellogg, the cat has come to Kyiv for a week. They're preparing for something. Putin has urgently restored 5 secret nuclear facilities. That was epic. Ukrainians destroyed a book system worth $45 million with a $500 drone. The Kremlin is threatening Ukraine with a new major offensive. Hello, my name is Karina Klishun, and right now, here are the main headlines. But first, like this video if you support Ukraine, and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose each other on YouTube. Hell continues on the front line. Russian troops are not giving up their attempts to fully capture Donetsk region. They are pushing towards Kramatorsk and Kostiantynivka. Also, over the past day, the Russians advanced near the settlements of Novomikhailivka, Romanivka, Oleksandro-Kalinove, Popivyar, Piddubne, Boykivka, and Mirn. The Russian army also continues to destroy Ukrainian cities, especially those near the front line. In Donetsk region, there have been recorded strikes on civilian homes and administrative buildings. Cars as well. Just in the past day, the Russians shelled settlements in Donetsk region 21 times. Ukrainian troops have noticed that the Russians have started launching new drones similar to the Iranian Shahed, but carrying only 15 kilograms of explosives. They use these drones to attack moving Ukrainian military vehicles. The situation at the front is difficult. However, the Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation has issued a warning. The articles in some Western publications are absurd, specifically those claiming that the Kremlin is planning a new offensive.
The Kremlin is planning a new offensive. It's always hard to find more nonsensical material than in Bild. A complete lack of understanding. There is neither a front nor any events there. They read a bunch of Telegram channels, often Russian ones, and then write articles that get quoted here. By the way, they say they got this information from the Russian general staff. Well, you get the idea?
But the reality is this. The Russians' offensive efforts haven't really stopped since last year. They consistently try to apply pressure, but there aren't really any new offensives as such. There is a constant deployment of reserves, changes in tactics, attempts to seize border areas with assault groups, to force engagements, to throw reserves into the east, and so on. Moreover, Ukrainians are holding their ground with dignity, repelling the Russians. And thanks to drones, they are even capturing Russians. Yes, in the Kharkiv region, 2 occupiers surrendered because they were in a hopeless situation.
They moved with their hands raised with a makeshift white flag and used white armbands. After that, I decided to drop a note to them from the Mavic. The drop crew dropped them a bottle, some water, and also a note. The note said that if they wanted to surrender, they should follow the drone toward our infantry positions. After that, we used the drone to escort them to the infantry positions, where the infantryman of the 1st Border Commandant's office took the soldiers into captivity.
We went out on a hunt. During the hunt, we discovered the dugout and spent the whole night dismantling it. It turned out that there were 5 enemy soldiers sitting in that dugout. In the morning, at dawn, they decided to escape. Personally, our crew today managed to. Of those who ran out of that dugout, 1 was killed and 1 wounded, the rest scattered and couldn't be found. And then, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, our reconnaissance discovered 2 who decided to surrender.
And a special unit of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine, using a ground robot, eliminated the Russians with a machine gun. The armed and technological struggle for Ukraine's freedom continues. I think we should write words of thanks to Ukrainian heroes in the comments. They'll appreciate it. Drones, of course, are lifesavers, but they've also turned the situation on the front line around 180 degrees. It is precisely because of the widespread use of FPV drones that the front line in Ukraine is frozen. As reported by journalists from the Wall Street Journal, citing experts, movement in open areas has become deadly dangerous. Everything within 20 kilometers of the front line has become a potential target. After all, the cost of drones is so low that they are used to strike even individual soldiers. Soldiers cannot leave their shelters without becoming victims of drones.
Drones can lay mines, deliver cargo from ammunition to medical supplies, and even evacuate the wounded or the dead. But more importantly, they track any movement along the front line and are directed to strike enemy personnel and equipment.
Since the beginning of the full-scale war, the military used drones only for reconnaissance, but technicians quickly figured out how to turn them into weapons. But there are results from the drones. Enemy equipment is being destroyed. Ukrainian soldiers showed how, thanks to a cheap drone, they destroyed the Russian Buk M3 surface-to-air missile system worth about $45 million. This system is one of the key components of Russia's air defense system. Well, it was, anyway. Meanwhile, the U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, has arrived in Ukraine. It is known that Kellogg came to Ukraine for an entire week. He was met by the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, in a suit. Interestingly, Kellogg himself was not wearing a suit, although, as we know, the White House requires otherwise. Kellogg will discuss with Ukrainian officials topics such as defense, strengthening security, weapons, sanctions, protection of people, and enhancing cooperation between Ukraine and the United States. People online are already placing bets on whether Putin will shell Kyiv while Kellogg is in Ukraine. And what do you think?
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing huge changes. At least, that's what they're telling us in the States. As Republican Senator Lindsey Graham stated in an interview with CBS News, in the coming days there will be a record flow of weapons to help Ukraine defend itself.
Putin has miscalculated here. For 6 months, President Trump tried to lure Putin to the negotiating table, but the attacks increased instead of decreasing. One of Putin's biggest mistakes was playing against Trump. And you will see that in the coming days and weeks, there will be a huge effort to bring Putin to the negotiating table. And for those who are helping him, China is buying cheap Russian oil and bears no responsibility. But those days are coming to an end.
Trump's rhetoric has clearly changed over the past week. It seems he has finally seen the light. The publication Axios is also writing about the transfer of weapons. They say there will be an aggressive supply plan. They write that there will even be long-range missiles capable of reaching Moscow. Do they mean tomahawks? In any case, it seems that Putin has really angered Trump. And this fact is confirmed by the senator himself. Well, things are getting more interesting. And what do you think about this? Empty words. Will any serious actions actually begin? Write your thoughts in the comments. Is nuclear war getting closer? According to journalists from Business Insider citing sources and satellite images, it has become known that Russia is expanding 5 secret nuclear bases. They are surrounded by fences and guarded by closed checkpoints. In the images taken in May and June, new buildings, roadworks and modifications have been recorded. Some of the sites are undergoing rapid expansion. These activities point to possible Russian plans regarding its nuclear forces amid heightened tensions in Europe caused by the war against Ukraine. The Kremlin has repeatedly tried to intimidate the West by threatening to use nuclear weapons. And lately, it has been doing this more frequently to deter support for Ukraine.
There are 2 main interests here, said Hans Christensen, director of the Nuclear Information Project at the Federation of American Scientists for modernizing the facility. One is internal, related to something you do from time to time. The other is definitely interaction with other nuclear powers or major military powers.
Given the significant depletion of Russia's ground and air forces in the ongoing war, other astute analysts theorize that Moscow may indeed try to restore its military power by heavily relying on old, established Soviet-era military foundations such as widespread mass mobilization and its formidable nuclear weapons arsenal. Since the civilized world does not allow Russians to participate in international competitions, Russia held its annual dunk-throwing championship, specifically with cow patties.
Whoever hit the most spectators got to run. Maximovska, skillfully maneuvering and utilizing an American football with remarkable precision and athletic prowess, ultimately demonstrated exceptional talent and proved to be the absolute best in her performance.
More than 2,000 people came to this festival. Brilliant. As they say, you make do with what you have. The next discipline on the Russian sports calendar, traditional grave digging for speed. And this is not a joke. They actually have such a competition. Are you ready to get started? 40,000 military personnel from 19 countries will be practicing repelling a Chinese attack on Taiwan. The largest military exercises by the US and Australia, called Magic Sword, have begun. Among them, forces from Japan, South Korea, India, the United Kingdom, France and Canada will participate. However, Australia has decided to warn in advance that they will not make any promises to the US regarding participation in a hypothetical conflict with China. Over Taiwan, everything will be decided by the Australian government as the situation unfolds.
Our response is the same as the one Deputy Prime Minister Miles gave in Parliament in an important statement a few years ago. The only authority that can decide on Australia's participation in a war or allow our territory to be used for a conflict is the government elected on the day in question. That is our position. Sovereignty will always be a priority, and that will remain our stance.
But in the meantime, China has not remained silent. They have also deployed landing craft for exercises against the backdrop of Taiwan's military maneuvers. What do you think? Will it all end with exercises, or should we expect a new war? And now here's some news that doesn't quite match what the Europeans are telling us. According to journalists from La Repubblica, in 2024, the EU spent more on purchasing Russian gas than on aid to Ukraine. And this was revealed to them by the European Commissioner for Energy, Dan Jurgensen.
Even if there were a country capable of supplying us with gas at a really low price, it would be a bad idea to return to a situation of dependency like the one we experienced in the past. We will not repeat the same mistake. Our goal is to produce our own energy, which will largely come from renewable sources, as well as from nuclear energy.
That's the paradox. Jurgensen also confirmed the European Commission's plans to completely stop using gas from Russia by 2027. But plans are just plans. For now, they're not action yet. How about that? 12 million shells. Kim Jong-un has likely supplied them to Russia for the war in Ukraine. And he plans to send 25 or maybe even 30,000 of his own soldiers to the slaughter. How will this affect the course of the war? Details in our report.
The alliance between Pyongyang and Moscow continues to grow stronger.
The leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, a figure known for his authoritarian rule, is expected to align himself with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This alliance is anticipated to endure for an extended period, potentially as long as the ongoing conflict or geopolitical circumstances necessitate. This commitment was underscored during a recent high-level diplomatic engagement, specifically a meeting held with the esteemed Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, where discussions likely centered on international cooperation and strategic partnerships between their respective nations.
In the North Korean city of Wonsan, Kim, during a recent high-level meeting, Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea, unequivocally assured Russian President Vladimir Putin that the Democratic People's Republic of Korea would steadfastly continue its unwavering support for Russia. This significant declaration underscores the deepening ties between the two nations. As of the present day, the capital city of Pyongyang, North Korea, has solidified its position as an absolutely crucial and indispensable ally for Moscow, the capital of the Russian Federation. This alliance has become a cornerstone of their respective foreign policies, reflecting a shared geopolitical outlook and a commitment to mutual cooperation on various international fronts, including military and economic spheres, further cementing their strategic partnership in the current global landscape. The bloodthirsty dictators have found each other. North Korea is the first and so far the only country to have officially sent thousands of its soldiers to the war against Ukraine.
In particular, I want to highlight the participation in the elections in the border regions of the Kursk region, military personnel of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
In addition to soldiers, Kim Jong-un is supplying Russia with ballistic missiles, artillery and shells. The scale of ammunition deliveries is impressive.
According to South Korean intelligence, during the war in Ukraine, North Korea has supplied Russia with 28,000 containers of weapons and artillery shells. According to military intelligence from South Korea provided on Sunday, North Korea continues to supply Russia with artillery shells to support its war against Ukraine. The volume of deliveries amounts to more than 12,152 millimeter shells. In other words, nearly every second shell used by the occupying army on the front line has been supplied to the aggressor by the North Korean dictator. According to the head of Ukrainian military intelligence, North Korea is currently supplying Russia with up to 40% of the ammunition used in the war in Ukraine, as the partnership between Pyongyang and Moscow grows stronger. In addition to the continuous flow of equipment and ammunition, North Korea is planning to significantly increase the number of its troops fighting on Russia's side against Ukraine in the near future by sending an additional 25,000 to 30,000 soldiers.
Previously, it was 11,000 and 5,000 to 7,000, for whom Shoigu requested authorization, pseudo deployments in the Kursk region, and now 30 all zero troops. So nominally, this reaches up to 50,000. And when the leader of North Korea is already saying that North Koreans will carry out the objectives set before them, essentially by the Russian army, and this is connected to Ukraine. On the one hand, yes, this does pose an additional threat, because 50,000 on a particular front, in addition to the Russian army, could create, let's say, quite serious problems in Ukraine.
The alliance between North Korea and Russia is a dangerous challenge not only for Ukraine but for the entire democratic world. After all, in addition to money, technology and food, the North Korean regime is gaining a battle-hardened, experienced army that, unlike its Asian neighbors, knows firsthand what modern warfare is.
An incredible number of those drones are flying at us. So while Trump hasn't made another powerful statement, we have to find a way to defend ourselves. And, of course, Ukrainians have come up with a solution. We now have new ammunition that allows us to effectively fight drones using standard rifles. This is a standard 5.56mm caliber cartridge. For rifles, after being fired, they disperse into shot and effectively hit drones at distances up to 50 meters. This allows soldiers to defend themselves against drones without the need for additional heavy weapons. If a drone is detected, they can quickly switch to special cartridges and hit the target. Currently, Ukraine is actively ramping up production to ensure that every soldier has at least one magazine of such ammunition. These shells arrived at a critically important moment and are expected to become a key factor in holding back the Russian offensive. Dictator Putin has approved the foundation of a new language policy in the Russian Federation. The Russian language's ideology, mandatory Cyrillic for everyone, and the unified teaching method in schools. This method is directly linked to spiritual bonds and the understanding of the so-called Russian world. This document makes language a part of the ideological platform of the current government.
Approve the attached foundations of the state language policy of the Russian Federation. This decree comes into force on the date it is signed.
The document also emphasizes the need to reduce the use of foreign words and to counteract the cancellation of Russian culture. A course has been set to protect the Russian language from excessive influence by foreign words. An ambitious goal has been set to make the Russian language more popular in multinational Russia and subsequently around the world. So, does language still not matter? Like this video to support what we do. And be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss the next episodes. See you soon!